नमस्कार। आज हम एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण पोएटिक मूवमेंट को के साथ आए हैं, जो वर्ल्ड पोएट्री मूवमेंट द्वारा पूरे विश्व में चलाया जा रहा है। और आज हमारे साथ में है वर्ल्ड पोएट्री मूवमेंट के इंडिया चैप्टर का क्या जो दिल्ली चैप्टर है वो हमारे साथ में है। हम करीब 8 स्थानों पर ये चलाएंगे, जैसे आज राजस्थान और दिल्ली में हुआ है, कल उड़ीसा में, और इस तरह से हमारे दिन हर दिन अलग अलग स्टेट्स में होंगे पोइट्री रीडिंग्स। ये जो हमारा पोइटिक मूवमेंट है, ये एक खास मकसद से हो रहा है। वो है कि आज भी जो विश्व में उपनिवेशवाद है उसके विरोध में हम कर रहे हैं, उसके खिलाफ में। और उपनिवेशवाद भी उस जगह हो रहा है जो दुनिया का सबसे पुराना मुल्क है, जहाँ जिसे हम सृष्टि का पालना कह सकते हैं, जहाँ पर ये सृष्टि का विकास हुआ है। इस इलाके में जब हमारा ये इस तरह की स्थिति हो रही है, तो हम बिना बोले रह नहीं सकते हैं, हमें अपनी आवाज को उठाना ही पड़ेगा। आपने सुना होगा कि इन दिनों अफ्रीकन देशों में अचानक तख्ता पलट की आवाजें आने लगी हैं। हालांकि मीडिया हमको सारी खबरें नहीं देता है, क्योंकि वर्ल्ड पोइट्री मूवमेंट में हमारे साथ में अनेक अफ्रीकन कवि जुड़े हुए हैं, इसलिए हमें अंदर की भीतर की खबरें मिलती हैं और उससे ये पता लगता है कि वहां पर बहुत बुरे हालात हैं। हालात ऐसे हैं कि वैसे तो हम जानते हैं कि अफ्रीका उपनिवेशवाद से सदियों से जूझ रहा है, एक के बाद एक दास्ता से जकड़ा है, यहाँ तक कि यहाँ पर जो मनुष्य की दास्ता है वो भी वहीं से शुरू हुई है। फिर इसके बाद में सबसे पहले आज़ादी मिली 1957 में घाना में, फिर अमेरिका में बहुत मुश्किल से जाके 1954 में 1994 में हमें रंग भेद नीति के खिलाफ अफ्रीकन देशों के नागरिकों को एक सफलता मिली। लेकिन ये एक बहुत बड़ा क्षेत्रफल है, बहुत बड़ा महाद्वीप है, और इसका जिसका आकार अगर हम देखें तो चीन, यूरोप, अमेरिका और भारत आदि और कुछ छोटे छोटे अन्य देशों को मिलाकर, उन सबको मिलाकर केवल एक अफ्रीका महाद्वीप बनता है। लेकिन क्या आपने कभी देखा है कि अफ्रीका महाद्वीप एटलस में इतना बड़ा दिखाई नहीं देता? क्या इसके पीछे कोई मानसिकता है, कोई उनकी भावनात्मकता है कि हम इस देश को बड़ा दिखाई नहीं सकते? फिर आप देखिए कि इस देश में 60% खनिज मिलता है, और यहाँ पर जो सोना है वो करीब 40% है, हीरा है वो 33% है, और फोन और बिजली आदि के जो उपकरण के जो मटेरियल है वो करीब 80% है। यहाँ पर 1300 मिलियन जीव जंतु रहते हैं। ऐसी हालत में ऐसा देश, ऐसी जहाँ पर इतनी विविधता है, यहाँ पर बर्फ भी होगी, यहाँ पर मरुस्थल भी है, यहाँ पर वन्य जीव भी है, यहाँ पर निपाट स्थान भी है। ऐसे खूबसूरत जगह पे के लोग आज भी क्यों बार बार दूसरे देशों में भाग रहे हैं, बार बार दूसरे देशों में नौकरी करने के लिए जा रहे हैं? क्या कभी हमने सोच के देखा है? ये तो हमें मालूम है कि अफ्रीका में जो आपदा है वो बहुत हुई है, प्राकृतिक आपदा। लेकिन प्राकृतिक आपदा अकेला कारण नहीं है। कारण क्या है कि यहाँ पर जो यूरोपीय देश थे जिन्होंने फ्रीडम तो दे दी थी, लेकिन वो यहाँ से गए नहीं, और किसी न किसी रूप में वो यहाँ पर अपना हक अधिकार जमाते रहे, और ये इस तरह से जमाते रहे कि यहाँ के लोगों को खाने को, पीने को भी बहुत किल्लत हो गई, और उसकी उनके साथ में उनके ही अपने नेता मिले रहे। शायद यही कारण है कि हमारे पास में ये जो अफ्रीका में 1950 के बाद में 242 बार तख्ता पलट हुआ, जिसमें सब पे सफलता नहीं मिली है। लेकिन अभी हाल में ही कुछ देशों में हुआ है, निगर, माली, बुर्किना फासो और गैबोनीज आदि में जो तख्ता पलट हुआ है, ये सारे देश जो थे वो उसमें से कुछ देश थे वो फ्रांस आदि यूरोपीय देशों द्वारा उनका उनका अपहरण हो रहा था, उनकी संपदा का अपहरण हो रहा था। या यानी आप सोचिए कि जो संपदा, जो बिजली वहां पर उत्पन्न होती है अफ्रीका में, उससे रोशनी फ्रांस में जल रही है, उससे रोशनी अमेरिका में जल रही है। और ऐसे हालत में जब अफ्रीका के लोग खड़े हुए और उन्होंने इसके विरोध आवाज लगाई, तो हमारा भी कर्तव्य है, हम क्योंकि वैश्विक नागरिक हैं, हमारा भी कर्तव्य है कि हम उनके साथ में आवाज़ उठाएं, और हमारी आवाज़ तो कविता के माध्यम से ही निकलेगी। तो हमने अनेक प्रांतों में, अनेक भाषाओं में हमने ये जो हमारा जो आवाज़ है, ये हमारा कर्तव्य है, जो हमारा दायित्व है, उसको हम करने जा रहे हैं। आज पहला दिन है और हम आज दिल्ली चैप्टर में, पहले राजस्थान का हो चुका है, अब दिल्ली चैप्टर में हम दिल्ली चैप्टर को हम आरंभ करने जा रहे हैं। इस दिल्ली चैप्टर की जो कोऑर्डिनेटर है वो पूजा प्रियमवदा है। पूजा प्रियमवदा, आपका स्वागत है। आप, आज बहुत दिनों बाद हो रहा है ना, तो थोड़ी गलतियां होंगी, है ना, तो तो आपका स्वागत है। अब आप अपने मित्रों को पहले एक एक करके कवियों को आप आमंत्रित कीजिए, इसके बाद में आप इस संचालन को अपने हाथ में उठाइए, और फिर मैं यहाँ से इसके पक्ष में, इसके पृष्ठभूमि में मैं जाऊंगी। धन्यवाद पूजा।
Dhanyavad, ma'am. Dhanyavad for setting the context. I will speak more in English because I think that's the common language that we all share today here. Thank you for the introduction and setting the context, ma'am. In solidarity with the Free Africa World Poetry Readings by WPM, and we are also the Kritya International Poetry Festival team in India who are in solidarity. We are reading this today on a very important day, which is the International Day of Peace. As ma'am has mentioned, our Rajasthan chapter have already done their readings physically. They met offline at 4 p.m. and we are doing it here. So I will first welcome all the poets who are joining me here today. First of all, I'm very glad to welcome CPV Nzima, who is joining us from Lesotho. Hi, welcome. Can you please unmute Brijeshji? Brijeshji, please unmute her. And next on, we'll have Mrs. Satbir Chadda. She's a senior English poet. I will, of course, introduce all the poets in detail later, but just to welcome them and say hello to who all are here today. Hello, welcome, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. Kumar Shailendra. He's a very senior Hindi and Bhojpuri poet joining us. Welcome, sir. We also will hear poems from Shaurya Chakra Lieutenant Colonel Sham Sundar Sharma, who's not here today physically, but he has sent his poems. I now welcome Mr. Anand Khatri. He's a poet who writes in English and I think in Hindi as well. Welcome. Also, we have with us Kasturika Mishra. Kasturika ji is a well-known name in the poetry circles in Delhi and around. So I'm sure a lot of her friends will be joining us today in solidarity.
Thank you, Pooja. Sabko namaskar.
Kasturika ji. And next up is Udita Garg, a young poet. She's joining us today with her poems. Welcome, Udita.
Hello.
Yeah, and I am Pooja Priyamvada, as ma'am already introduced us. So today, unfortunately, as ma'am said, this is not a celebration. A lot of times we join in poetry in celebration, but today in solidarity and resistance against colonialism, against oppression that is happening in Africa. And as it is famously said that the measure of civilized behavior is compassion. And all of us here are poets. So our way of expressing our compassion is through our poetry. I'm sure all our viewers who are watching us, everybody who is listening to us on YouTube and Facebook and elsewhere, will resonate with whatever we want to put across today. You will hear a diverse range of poems with a lot of compassion and empathy and solidarity with Africa. So without further ado, I will first welcome our special guest from Lesotho, CPV Nzima. She's a poet, film actress, singer, and activist. Those of you curious can search her on Google, YouTube, like I did, and I was blown away by how she reads her poems with such force and passion, and we all are going to witness this today. She writes about human rights, gender-based violence, and child abuse, and her work is an infusion of spoken word, African melodies, and traditional drumming. And it also draws inspiration from contemporary Afro jazz artists. Her passion for the preservation of the African child has led her to write poems about all these topics. And she's been awarded several awards, including the Best Rhythm and Blues Album by Ultimate Radio Music Awards in 2014. We welcome you, Sipiwe, and we are looking forward to joining our voices with your strong voice. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this absolutely amazing welcome. And I'm truly honored to be a part of this platform on this momentous day of international world peace, and especially because of this global action to finally just have a concentrated effort towards the struggle of Africa and its people. And I sincerely hope that my poems will resonate and we can all feel the pain that a lot of Africans are going through literally all over the continent, even those who are also based abroad due to a myriad of different situations and conflicts. I have two poems to read for you today. The first poem is called Africa Arise. It goes, in lands drenched in crimson soil, Africa's tale was told. In a symphony of rage, a new reality unfolds. From the grip of colonization, her spirit fiercely fought, but her wounds still bleed. Her scars still breathe. They swoop, spreading their mighty wings, clenching their colonial chains, ravished and pillaged with greed, ignoring her cries of anguish as her weeping fills the sky. Boundaries were carved on her skin. Borders were drawn with disdain in the blood of the slain. She was torn apart. Her children lost in flight. Her voice muffled, silent, a victim of hateful crime. Now, in the chambers of power, politicians play their game, corruption, deception, and endless quest for fame. Leaders looting coffers while the masses, they oppress, leaving behind shattered dreams wrapped in sorrow's dread. Now her indignation rises like a tempest in the night, her voice emerging, defying every plight. When human rights are denied, security is unbound, and where injustice breathes defiance, resistance shall be found. The march for liberation echoes, growing louder each day, protesting in defiance, forging a new way. Africa, arise, unleash your righteous wrath, unshackle the chains that bind you, and walk the righteous path. No longer you will be marred by foreign hands, and your sons shall reclaim your stolen land. Listen, freedom dances in the wind and whispers in the breeze. Your defiance swells like the waves upon the sea. They tremble, for their reign shall be no more as Africa, united, brings justice to her shore. Let the world bear witness to your mighty roar. No longer will you be imprisoned in this cage of war. Your soul in to break free from the grasp of slavery and to denounce all political tyranny. Africa, may the legacy of your pain ignite a fire to liberate our future, where love and justice reign. In triumph we will stand, hand in hand, forever proud once more of the cradle of mankind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My second poem is called Break the Silence. This is in commemoration of gender-based violence, especially towards women, abuse, and children. And it's quite rife in my country, in Lesotho, so this is quite close to my heart. Break the silence. We try to hide the pain behind a troubling mask of bravery. We try to forget the humiliation we suffered at the very core of our womanhood. We try to put the blame on ourselves for the sins of our oppressors, the criminals. We try to pretend it never happened. No, it never did. We think we can easily forget how degraded we still feel inside and outside. We think it will never haunt us to know they're still out there, watching and waiting. We think we can overcome this fear every time we step out the front door to face the world. We always think, forever thinking. We can, however, stop thinking and take action towards reclaiming our dignity and self respect. We can react and realize the power we possess within our minds, our bodies, and our souls. You see, silence is the power that gives the right to violate us over and over and over, a never ending cycle that will surely be the ruin of the independent woman. Salvation is key to breaking the chains and regaining the power to say, stop, not this time. Break the silence. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sipive. Such a strong voice you are, as I already said. Uh, of course, Africa Arise is such a call, and I think rightly put at the very beginning of the session. Freedom dances in the wind is like I could see actually the wind dancing with that much of strength and power. And of course, we all know across the world as women, we are all concerned about sexual violence, and especially in Africa because it comes with the colonial force and becomes all the more brutal. So we all stand in solidarity with all of you. Thank you for opening this session at such a strong note. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I will invite Mrs. Satbir Chadda to read her poems. She is the author of the highly acclaimed book For God Loves Foolish People, for which she was awarded the Ruel International Prize. She has written a medical thriller, has been published in over 20 national and international anthologies containing poetry and short stories. She has 3 solo poetry collections to her credit, and she was also awarded the Litpreneur Award by Authors Press for her contribution to literature. I have seen ma'am active in multiple poetry groups, and it is always a pleasure to hear her. She's also the founder of Nissim International Prize for Literature, awarded every year to upcoming writers of English prose and poetry. We are so glad, ma'am, that you could join us today. And ma'am will be reading 2 poems, Bloody Murk and This Happened in Delhi. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and God bless you. So, the first poem I'm reading is Bloody Murk. They threw slaves, starved and cringing, into caves of hungry lions, while strong and powerful men clapped and guffawed in the stands. Across the continents, they killed original tribes and captured their land, plundered its riches. The true children of the soil became paupers and outlaws. They sent able men to die in the snows of Siberia, and thousands of families into gas chambers, to showers not of water, but cruel rain of death. They came marching down from hungry deserts and rugged mountains and the peaceful east, carrying away the riches and fair maidens of the land in a pinnacle of debauchery. They bombed down whole cities, killing men, women, and children. Their future generations were cruelly maimed. And in wars, it rained not water, but strange yellow powder. The victims with scathing eyes and burning skin scampered to their death. They mobbed innocent men and put tires round their necks and ignited them. Today's arsenal has all countries in fear, where every backyard has an array of deadly precision weapons beating sci fi wars of films. Subversion and oppression, digitally manicured. Invasion of foreign nations, too, order of the day. Is it man's thirst for blood or land or power that urges him to unleash such violence? Does not the thought of retribution make him fear that he may lose more than he could ever gain? Of loss of loved ones, does he not know the pain? Let's cry and shout now for immediate death. Death to all violence, death to every war. A cry for peace at last, a shout for peace to endure. Thank you. And my second poem is this happened in Delhi. It's a historical narrative, again about oppression and ultimate violence, unimaginable violence. They marched down the streets of Mehrauli in Delhi. They marched down the streets of Mehrauli in Delhi, the slaughtered heads of Sikhs. Sikhs is a clan like I belong to. We wear turbans, so we are identified. It's a religious sect. The slaughtered heads of Sikhs, 700 bleeding heads, no less, pierced on the tips of their cruel spears, and now were heading to their leader, the mighty Baba Banda Singh Bahadur, the warrior who had avenged the martyrdom of Guruji's two younger sons in the teary saga at Sand. They approached him as he sat fully armed, more than 7 feet tall, his hand on the hilt of his sword. Knowing their task, he said he was ready. He would not fight on the other side of destiny. They tied him with ropes and dragged him in mud. Killed a man later, his dignity first. And when it was time to kill him by beheading, when it was time to kill him by beheading, they held aloft his infant son and said, "First do our bidding. Slit with your own sword your little son's breast. Slit with your own sword your little son's breast. Pluck out his heart and swallow it yourself." The earth crumpled up. The earth crumpled up, and the sky shed tears. How could they tell him to torture and kill his son dear? They had not, they had obviously not reckoned the man's iron will. They had obviously not reckoned this man's iron will. The wind stood still. The congregation stood still. His strength could not be matched by any man. Yet now, with his sharp dagger, his son's chest, he cut open. The cut that is the deepest. It cleaved the earth, tore the men. This saga, when heard of by Rabindranath Tagore, he was moved and throttled like never before. He made him immortal with his wise pen. He made him immortal with his wise pen. Banda Bir is the name of that grieving poem. Banda Bir is the name of that grieving poem. Thank you, friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such poignant images. And unfortunately, human history has proven it time and again that the more the things change, the more they remain the same. And unfortunately, the cruelty and the discrimination and the worst remains the same. That is one thing that probably hasn't changed over the ages. And sadly, that is what we have to keep raising our voice against time and again. Thank you so much, ma'am. Next up, I will now invite senior poet Kumar Shailendra. Sir has been an English professor and head of the department at a degree college in Rohtas, Bihar. As a founder of a school in his small township, he's also now known as somebody dedicated to taking education to the poorest of the poor. His poetry and prose have been published in several reputable newspapers, magazines, anthologies. He has read his poems all over All India Radio, Doordarshan, and other platforms. He was conferred the Karamveer Puraskar as an educationist and Kavya Shastri Award by Hindi Academy, Hyderabad. He's known for his Navgeet in Hindi and also writes prose. Today, he's going to read in Hindi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Pooja, and to all. I am present here for the first time in such a great platform. I have been invited. I am very much pleased, and this credit goes to Pooja Premada and to all of you. Today, I will recite a Navgeet. Perhaps you would not have heard anywhere. And if we spare time and given opportunity, then I can recite the other poem also. Just I'm going to start. There are images. The entire globe is disturbed by mind, as I think. सारा उपद्रव मनुष्य के दिमाग में है. पूजा सबको बहुत विनम्रतापूर्वक यह गीत सुनाना चाहता हूँ. नवगीत है. इसमें इमेजेस होंगे और सीनरीज होगी, परिस्थितियां होगी, व्यक्ति भी होगा, लेकिन नाम लेके नहीं है. तो ये for the first time on such a great platform, I'm going to recite this poem. Well, can I start?
Yes, please.
Can
sir.
I start?
Please. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. इस नवगीत का शीर्षक है काठ के घोड़े न जाने. काठ के घोड़े न जाने. अब थोड़ा सा ये अभ्यास छूट गया है गाने वाने का, क्योंकि मैं बहुत दिनों से बीमार चल रहा हूँ. ये कहना पड़ता है क्योंकि ऐसे रोज काम पड़ते हैं जबकि याद आता है कि नहीं बहुत दिनों से बीमार हूँ. बहरहाल अब इसके आगे स्वस्थ हो जाऊंगा. काठ के घोड़े न जाने. ताप के अनगिन समर्थक हाथ क्यों जोड़े न जाने. ताप के अनगिन समर्थक हाथ क्यों जोड़े न जाने. अस्तबल इतने निरर्थक, अस्तबल इतने निरर्थक. काठ के घोड़े न जाने, काठ के घोड़े न जाने. बंद के कि दूब उग पाती नहीं संदर्भ जी कर बर्फ में. दूब उग पाती नहीं संदर्भ जी कर बर्फ में. अशुभ ध्वनित होता नहीं है, शुभ ध्वनित होता नहीं है. अर्थ ग्रंथित हर्फ में शुभ ध्वनित होता नहीं है. अर्थ ग्रंथित हर्फ में ढूंढती नव पथ प्रदर्शक, ढूंढती नव पथ प्रदर्शक. पीढ़ियां थोड़े न जाने, ढूंढती नव पथ प्रदर्शक. पीढ़ियां थोड़े न जाने. अस्तबल इतने निरर्थक काठ के घोड़े न जाने. काठ के घोड़े न. बंद गए कि भग्न मन का मौन तापस लग्न की यौगिक क्रिया. भग्न मन का मौन तापस लग्न की यौगिक क्रिया. अपशकुन नितलादती है अपशकुन, नितलादती है, बाँचती है संख्या, बाँचती है संख्या। तो जहर के नकली प्रवर्तक, जहर के नकली प्रवर्तक, जहर के नकली प्रवर्तक, सांप फन मोड़े न जाने, सांप फन मोड़े न जाने, अस्तबल इतने निरर्थक, काठ के घोड़े न जाने, काठ के घोड़े। वर्तन देखिए कि वर्तनी से हार खाई, इस स्पेलिंग को जो भी समझ ले, इस सामान्य जीवन में, मनुष्य जीवन में क्या स्पेलिंग है। वर्तनी से हार खाई, सनसनाती गोलियां, वर्तनी से खार खाई, सनसनाती गोलियां, और झील खोकर हिरन प्यासे, झील खोकर हिरन प्यासे, दिग्भ्रमित शिशु टोलियां, झील खोकर हिरन प्यासे, दिग्भ्रमित शिशु टोलियां। तो नापते धृति, पेशेंस, नापते धृति व्योम वर्षक, नापते धृति व्योम वर्षक, लीक क्यों छोड़े न जाने, लीक क्यों छोड़े न जाने, अस्त्रबल इतने निरर्थक, काठ के घोड़े न जाने, अस्त्रबल इतने निरर्थक। और अंतिम बंद है कि पल्लुओं की ओट में, वीमेन वर्ल्ड, पल्लुओं की ओट में दहकी नई अंतर्व्यथा, पल्लुओं की ओट में दहकी नई अंतर्व्यथा, और तख्तियों सी भाल पर, तख्तियों सी भाल पर अंकित पतित पौरुष कथा, तख्तियों सी भाल पर अंकित पतित पौरुष कथा। तो भीष्म हमारे यहाँ के पौराणिक पात्र भीष्म है, और वो सिनोनिम है संकल्प के। भीष्म मन का क्रांति दर्शक, प्राण प्रण तोड़े न जाने, प्राण प्रण तोड़े न जाने, अस्त्र बल इतने निरर्थक, काठ के घोड़े न जाने, ताप के अनगिन समर्थक, हाथ क्यों जोड़े न जाने, अस्त्र बल इतने निरर्थक, काठ के घोड़े न जाने, अस्त्र बल इतने निरर्थक, काठ के घोड़े न जाने। और ये लोकगीत पूरा हुआ। और हाँ, अभी मेरे पास समय होगा तो दूसरे गीत का भी कुछ अंश सुना सकता हूँ।
अभी हम यहीं रुकेंगे क्योंकि सबको मैं एक बार सब पढ़ ले, फिर अगर समय होगा तो मैं लौटूंगी। बट आपने जो पढ़ा वो बहुत मेरे दिमाग में बहुत सारी इमेजेस चल रही थी, ट्रोजन हॉर्सेस से लेके पतित पौरुष कथा, द टॉक्सिक मैस्कुलिनिटी दैट हैज fed colonialism all over the world, and epic poetry that has time and again spoken about conquests and at what cost. So all of those thoughts, and I'm sure you should find time to read some of the comments, and a lot of our people, poets, fellow poets from across the world have loved your poem. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Next up, we will hear now this the video recordings by our fellow poet, Lieutenant Colonel Shyam Sundar Sharma. He is a Shaurya Chakra and a decorated war-wounded veteran. He has a special connection with Africa. He grew up in Nigeria, where his parents worked for over 22 years. And also later, during his career in the Indian Army, he took active part in the United Nations military operations in Somalia. So he has had a very deep and close connection with Africa, and he writes very passionately about Africa. He has also been a guest poet from India at Fermoy International Poetry Festival in Ireland earlier, and has a group of poetry, very active group, Poet Artists Unplugged. He from time to time appears at various forums with his poetry. Today he has sent us two poems. The first is by Yoruba Oreshwar, I think. That is how it is pronounced. A Man with the Strength of Three. And this is translated to English by Dele A. Sunubi from Lagos. And the second poem is his own, similar to what CPV read earlier, but this one is called Wake Up Africa. So now I request our technical member Brujesh ji to please play his both his poems.
Greetings everyone. The first poem I'll be reading today is A Man with the Strength of Three. The original poem is from the Divine Verses from Yoruba Orature. The English translation is by Dele A. Sunubi, a writer from Lagos. A man with the strength of three. I, a man with the strength of three men, the wall that stands erect amidst raging fire, a single elephant that rocks the jungle to its foundation. I who traverse across hills and slopes with the ease of one who eats honey. There is no other character type animal like the elephant in the forest. Neither does a bird as colorful as the peacock exist in the savannah. I who flatter others as though I would measure their value for profit. I, the enormous elephant who cannot go anywhere without being noticed. A courageous man whom no one dares to slap in the face. Even if a masquerade should dare such, demons will unmask him. People eye the partridge hungrily, as though it would be prepared in an aqua stew delicacy. Fortunately, it is the bird's guardian spirit that saves it from such a fate. The barbecue fire which was prepared to roast the vulture meat will eventually be used to roast another type of meat for reasons that no one kills the vulture, no one eats the vulture, and no one uses the vulture to propitiate his or her guardian spirit. He who predicts and eagerly awaits the descent of the butterfly will watch as it soars unreachably into the bush. Take heed, I am gone. For the knitting needle would have passed through the fabric before its thread encounters any obstruction.
Yeah. Second
My
poem,
second
please.
poem is titled Wake Up Africa, a poem I composed just for this event. Before Christ and before Islam, it is believed, Atlas held up the skies for the world. Until Atlas turned into a formidable fortress, a rugged mountain range, bathed by the Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea, with the sands of Sahara at his feet. When the axe entered the forest, the tree said, "Look, the handle is one of us." So they came anyways and were welcomed at the coast, first west and then east. Taking slaves, able-bodied Africans fetched a good price. The dark continent was probed through its heart of darkness to exploit the riches. When slavery got banned, they changed costumes to preachers, to colonize, to camp, and to steal. As the light of freedom traveled to Africa, it was time to decamp, but not without leaving tunnels that could be reused. The fault lines in Africa run deep. Deeper than geographical borders are the bonds of tribes and clans. The white man understood this. Without breaking a sweat, he can use the black man as his stooge to rule his people and loot. It is not just the Latin Americans that qualify as banana republics. Africa has its own plantain republics, planted by erstwhile colonizers. For now, the macabre puppet show runs full house, ethnic cleansing, genocide, sweep Africa like the harmattan that fogs everything with dust. You know, there's a beautiful bird called the pied cuckoo. It flies from East Africa to India. It is a monsoon migrant, the harbinger of rains. This bird has been visiting India long before sea routes were discovered. This tells us there is hope. Africa is resilient, this land of abundance where rivers flow undammed. It is not enough for Africans to chew khat and go on fighting with your own brothers. No matter how long the moon disappears, someday it must shine again. The moon is shining on Africa. You just have to wake up and see it. Thank you.
Oh, I think Pooja is not there. Yeah. So I think Pooja, yeah, now
Yeah,
she's here. Okay, fine.
I am so
Yeah.
sorry. I am having a bad day. I was telling ma'am back end, I'm under the weather and I think my internet is trying to give me company. So I'm so sorry. I missed the last part. But yes, Shyam's experience is a very first hand lived experience of Africa as a child and then as a soldier. When he talks about the axe entering the tree, it was almost visible. And also, he brought up a very stark, reference to Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, which has been one of our books, which most of us have read as English literature students about Africa and what happened in Africa. So thank you for that. And do we have Mr. Anand Khatri today here with us? I'll be inviting him next. He's a senior architect and a professor, a pranic healer, and a poet. He's the founder and director of the Poesy Society for Poetry and the Urban Village Charitable Trust. And he writes his architecture, spaces, therapy, and theosophy in poetry, which is amazing, which is so diverse. He has worked with the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, and in the year 2005, he was also a consultant with Punjab Heritage and Tourism Promotion, and he also has been a part of G20 T20 since 2022 Indonesian presidency. So today, I welcome him here to read his three poems, two of which were written in Marrakesh, Morocco, Sahara in English, and Syllable Society also in English, and then a 2 into 8 verse written in the desert in Hindi. Welcome, Anandji.
Thank you, Pooja. Indeed, it is a phenomenal representation of the change that poetry can make, which brings all of us here together to address a nation's problem through poetry. Congratulations, Rati. This is poetry in action, and this could not have been better. I'm happy to be in your company, my dear poet friends, and the audience who is here for the cause. To begin with, I am reading out a small poem which is on the Himba tribe. There is a tribe in Africa which uses the syllable as a corrective measure. So even before a child is born, a syllable is taken in by the mother from cosmos. Using the syllable, the parents go into a conjugal union. When the child is born, that syllable is sung. When he creates an error in life, that syllable is sung again to make corrections. The poem goes like this: holding names and languages to be syllabic rhythms, born to a rhythm under a tree, conceived under a unique rhythm, corrected, loved, cared, and knowing the soul self as a rhythm, building up and praying with only a rhythm. The Himba tribe is bathed in hematite, rich soil, and carries the iron of poetic justice. They have known before others could that poetry heals, rhythms lead to change. So this is the beauty of Sahara, and this is the beauty of Africa. The second that I want to read out is something that I had written in Sahara Desert. It's a 2 into 8 verse form in Hindi. इसको गीत के फॉर्म में ही पढ़ा जा सकता है, और कुमार शैलेंद्र भी है हमारे साथ। मैं उनसे इजाज़त चाहूँगा कि मैं उनकी उपस्थिति में इस गीत को पढ़ूँ। ये गीत कहता है, एकल अगोचर बिंब मेरा। गीत ऐसे जाता है, निर्जीव जंगल और ऊसर में अचानक गाल को छूकर जो गुजरा अनसुना अज्ञात स्वर लेकर हवा का एक झोंका, एकल अगोचर बिंब मेरा। एक स्वप्न का हाथ फेरे, खिन्न आंखें और अंधेरे, छूछे निशापत्य में उधारा, संग तेरे लिपटा उजका, एकल अगोचर बिंब मेरा। भर काजरी सपने नयन में, पाँव के आलताईपन में, भर काजरी सपने नयन में, पाँव के आलताईपन में, अक्सर अधूरा और बेकल टीस बनकर जो है चुभता, एकल अगोचर बिंब मेरा। So this was the verse form which I had written in Sahara when I visited Marrakesh and went up to Zagora to spend a night in Sahara. And while I was on the way back from Sahara, the desert started talking to me. And it said, I get to know as you prepare for your journey back into cities and your life in distant lands. I know you have captured glimpses of me in your graphic memory, but does your heart weep? Records which with you will play and rejoin me in the life beyond and within your mind. I held your camels through the nights. You slept, and as your breath heaved into breezes, ebbs in breezes, joined into winds and formed textures on grains and dunes, all through the night, as those who have drowned in the undiscovered oceanic depths find a desert at the base. Civilizations sleep in my sifting dunes. Innumerable astral entities uphold the mirages which convert pain and bloodshed into an oasis. And I remain the unquenched with my oceanic thirst that has become my being, my character, myself, waiting for you to come back to me in another life, only to ask me why on the night we slept absolved of crimes of shallow passions, spreading horizons to the tireless canvas of life. I remain to be the desert Sahara, and why you, the traveler of many lands, and still soaking something from everyone to put together your broken self every night. Why? Thank you.
कहना पड़े
Thank you.
और सशक्त स्वर आकर जुड़े हैं। जो आपके बाद पढ़ेंगी कस्तूरिका जी, वो भी बहुत सुरीली हैं, एंड आई मस्ट congratulate you that how beautifully you've woven all the three pieces together into almost a tapestry of images and strong metaphors that will stay with us for long. So thank you, Anandji. That was wonderful. Next, I will now welcome another of our very melodious poets, Kasturika Mishra. She is from Odisha and has been trained in Odissi and Ghazal style of singing. She worked as a senior cataloging librarian in the US Embassy, New Delhi, for the past 20 years. She writes and recites her poetry in English, Odia, Hindi, and Urdu, mostly on social media, but has been part of several literary platforms and festivals, including the reputed Jaipur Lit Fest in 2021 and the Rekta podcast. I have listened to Kasturika ji on many stages, and she always steals the show. Today, she'll be reading an English poem titled Trajectory, and I think another Odia poem. So Delhi being the melting pot of cultures, we've already had Hindi and English and poems from written across the world for the world, and now in Odia as well. Welcome, Kasturika ji.
कस्तूरबा जी म्यूट कर रखा है आपने, अनम्यूट कीजिए अपने आप को।
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you so much, Pooja. I am very proud of the fact that I have joined all of you here speaking about Africa and its condition and uh, the situation, which is actually not very openly decided or debated in world politics. I am not a politician and I'm merely a poet. And in my first poem, Trajectory, I am going to express my anguish over what I have observed about the country in Africa. The poem goes like this: bodies of flesh and blood, living without water to drink and even a drop to take bath, no bread to eat, mortgaging their soil for hoarding garbage from the entire world, away from the prying eyes of satellites and drones, hiding their grandparents' wish of Ubuntu under the skin of their breath. Ubuntu means I am because we are. Their leaders serve life terms in African jails. There are days, however, when their future sits in world forums as members of G20. One voice amongst them represents as head of UN, giving the slogan, "World peace and humanity, let it prevail." A narration on life struggle under duress and displacement also gets a Nobel Prize. All children of the world are born equal. All children of the world are born equal. Alas, I wish that was true. Away from the limelight, black miners are also huddled in windowless containers on ship across the Pacific Ocean. No one can hear their silent cries. No one can hear their silent cries on their armrest on hunched bodies. One night, pleasure bites for the rich billionaire on his ranch, while the flower wild daga blooms in Nigerian equatorial forests, unheard and selfless. Our women are ridiculed for big breasts and plum butts. In American talk shows, we are lauded for our brass openness, yet our sister cousins from best graduate schools are denied entry into secular political debates. They are denied to hold the nation's history and its torch like Martin Luther King. Till date, till date, humanity shrieks on the borders that are sealed when defense drills of the West flatten the only roof over their heads. Rice bags and medicines are dropped by helicopters, and we just get to hear on our television screen, peace, peace, let it prevail. Thank you. Dear poets and our audience, I just wanted to tell you that I belong to the eastern part of India. Orissa is a state on the eastern part of India, and our primal deity is Lord Jagannath. And I have found a similarity between my Lord, the black god, with with Africa, and tried to put some of my thoughts into words in Odia, and then I will read the English translation as well. I will first read the Odia. I will read the Odia version now. ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ଚକାଡୋଳା ସବୁ ଦେଖୁଛି, ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ଚକାଡୋଳା ସବୁ ଦେଖୁଛି, ତାଙ୍କ ଭକ୍ତମାନେ ସବୁ କଳା ଧଳା ରଙ୍ଗ ନିହିତ। ମଣିଷ ଜନ୍ମରେ ଗାଢ଼ କଳା ରଙ୍ଗ ମା ପେଟର ଗୁମର କଥା। ମା ପେଟରୁ ସେ କଳା ରଙ୍ଗ ଛୁଆ ଆପେ ଆପେ ଦେଖୁଛି ଆଫ୍ରିକାର ଘନ ଜଙ୍ଗଲ ହଉ କି ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ କାଳିଆ ମାଧୁରୀ। କଳା କନ୍ଦରରେ ରହିବା ଭକ୍ତ ଆଉ ଭଗବାନର ନିୟତି ଦୁଇଟି ଆଖିରେ ସେଇ କ୍ଷୁଧା ଓ ତୃଷ୍ଣା। କେବେ ଗିନାଏ ଚାଉଳ ଆଉ ମୁଠାଏ ମାଣ୍ଡିଆ ପାଣି ତ, କେବେ ବାଡ଼ିର ପାଣି ପରିବାର ବେସର, ବା କେବେ ମହାପ୍ରସାଦର ତୋରାଣୀ। ଗଛ ତଳେ ଶୋଇ ରହି ଆଫ୍ରିକାର ସେ ଛୁଆ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନ ଦେଖେ ପରୀ ରାଇଜର। ତା ଜଙ୍ଗଲର କଇଁଚ ତା ଥାଳିଆ ନେଇ ସ୍ୱର୍ଗ ସୁଖ ଲାଭ କରୁଛି। ସେ ବହୁତ ବଡ଼ ଗାଡ଼ିରେ ବଡ଼ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ଘରେ ରାଜନୀତିର ଜଗୁଆଳି କରୁଛି। ତା ହାତରେ କିନ୍ତୁ ଧରେଇ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ଶସ୍ତା ବନ୍ଦୁକ। ଆଉ ସେ ପିନ୍ଧିଛି ଜାତିସଂଘ ଦାନରେ ଆସିଥିବା ପୁରୁଣା ଚିରା ଲୁଗାପଟା। ଯାହା ଦାଗଲଗା କଟା ଆଉ ଚିରା, ତାକୁ ସେ ସବୁ କହିବା ମନା। ତାକୁ ଭୋକ ଶୋଷ ବୁଦ୍ଧି କିଛି ବି ଖଟେଇବାକୁ ମନା। ଯେତେବେଳେ କୁହାଯିବ କିଛି ବା ଯାହାକୁ ବି ମାରିଦେବାକୁ, ମିଳିବ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦେଶ, ମାରିଲେ ହିଁ ଖାଇବ ସିଏ। ତାର ସ୍ୱପ୍ନ ସେଇ ଥାଳିଆଟି ଆଉ ଗୋଟିଏ ଗୋଇଠା ପଛରେ। Now I will recite the English translation of this Oriya poem. Lord Jagannath is fondly called Kaliya, as his outer attire is always black, and the translation goes like this: Black God watches everything. He deems all his devotees as equal, whether black or white. A mother's womb is totally dark space, and a fetus grows in this darkness, just like blinding thick forests of Africa and our dear Lord Jagannath. It is destined for Jagannath and his favorite devotees to stay away from the world view, oblivious to what is happening around them. The master and his pupil have longing only for three things. That is a divine rice bowl, a local drink, and a homegrown vegetable stew. The African kid is daydreaming under the shade of the tree. In another part of the globe, the fellow who was ridiculed as tortoise is having heavenly food in silver cutlery, while the rich boy is guarding his interest in an impressive car inside a palatial house. His country cousin is lured with a country-made pistol and worn out loose clothes received in a UN aid charity program. His vision is blurred to see the stained, torn, discarded piece of cloth or utter a single word. He dare use his brains or say anything about his hungry self. He has standing instructions to shoot at sight anyone, anywhere. A kick in the butt and a plate full of ugali. Ugali is the prison food given in African jails. A kick in the butt and a plate full of ugali is all that is assured for him after he kills and kills and kills. Thank you.
Kasturika ji, this brought back Things Fall Apart from Chinua Achebe to me. It was so similar. And of course, you blended current affairs, geopolitics so well into it. And also the rhythm and beauty of Oriya language, the softness to the resistance. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Udita Garg, a young poet and writer from Delhi. She works as a guest assistant professor in the English department at Delhi University and has been writing poetry since she was a child. Her poetry has been published in various English and Hindi newspapers and various national and international anthologies and journals. Welcome, Udita. Udita shall be reading, I think, 2 poems today, The School and As One. Welcome, Udita.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pooja, and thank you uh, uh, for the introduction as well. Now, I feel that, with everybody reading and all of the other poets are really my seniors, so I will be reading just two very short poems that I've specifically wrote for this particular event. And these are very, I hope, generic poems that people can relate with in the colonial context as such. So the first poem that I will be reading is a poem called The School. My shadows turn chalky mother. They write my name in black on the whiteboard and laugh, calling me a horror. Every night, as the demon sleeps, they pull me from under the bed, screaming, "Go back! You don't belong!" How nights are dark, mother, and days so bright. Yet not always pure sun is the light. Be proud, my dear, for you are a delight. Your hair, dense forest, and your smile so fine. And if you gotta survive, you must fight, not with their harshness, but your starry voice. On the whiteboard, draw your face and show them how all of us are alike. Such a gift is this world with both its day and its night. Thank you. So, this is the first poem, and now I will be reading the second one. The second poem is titled As One. So, I'm borrowing, from some idioms in English here and some images. So, the poem goes, slicing like cakes spread on the blue green plate, the pieces that they call maps, they believe are theirs to have. Yet in their own language, you can't have a cake and eat it too. Their empty stomachs cannot swallow our songs, our art, our culture, our hearts. Our hearts so big that they contain the rain, the plain, the deserts, the mountain. The songs that build us to be one, the moons that can light the sun, our voice, our clothes, our birds, their nests. It all belongs to us and will forever stand as ours alone. And centuries shall remember our struggles and songs, the beauty of our land, the beauty of all we are and all we have, an anthem of freedom, a melody of equality, and we shall always breathe free. Thank you. This was the second poem.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Udita. So I was off the studio again for a while, but I was listening on another device. So thank you for the 2 poems. And I think, the demons from under our beds are actually demons that take larger dimensions when we talk about geopolitics and international affairs, and when we talk about what is happening in the name of development across the world. And you brought it forth so well through the child. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm not going to read any of my poems today, just a translation by me. To conclude this session, I'm reading a poem by Razak Malik from Nigeria. The poem is called In Another World, and I shall be reading the Hindi translation that I just did today. So excuse my bad voice, please, and the bad translation, but to conclude the session. In Another World, Razak Malik. In another world, I want to be a father without passing through the eternal insanity of mourning. The eternal insanity of mourning my children, without experiencing the ritual of watching my children return home as bodies folded like a prayer mat. Without spending my nights telling them the stories of a hometown where natives become aliens searching for a shelter. I want my children to spread a mat outside my house and play without the walls of houses ripped by rifles. I want to watch my children grow to recite the name of their homeland like Lord's Prayer, to frolic in the streets without being hunted like animals in the bush, without being mobbed to death. In another world, I want my children to tame grasshoppers in the field, to play with their dolls in the living room, to inhale the fragrance of flowers waving as wind blows, to see the birds measure the sky with their wings. किसी दूसरी दुनिया में किसी दूसरी दुनिया में मैं होना चाहूंगा एक पिता जिसे ना गुजरना पड़े अपने बच्चों के लिए मातम मनाने के असीम पागलपन से, बिना उस रिवाज के तजुर्बे के जहां मेरे बच्चे घर लौटते हों जा नमाज की तरह तय लगे हुए लाश बनकर. This image somehow stayed with me, bodies folded as prayer mats. जानमाज की तरह तय लगे हुए लाश बनकर उन्हें एक ऐसे गृहनगर की कहानियां सुनाते हुए जहां के मूल निवासी शरण स्थल खोजते हुए बन गए हों एलियन. मैं चाहता हूं कि मेरे बच्चे मेरे घर के बाहर चटाई बिछाकर खेलें, बिना उन घरों की दीवारों के जिन्हें राइफलों से ध्वस्त कर दिया गया हो. मैं अपने बच्चों को देखना चाहता हूं प्रभु की प्रार्थना की तरह उनकी मातृभूमि का नाम जपते हुए, सड़कों पर मौज मस्ती करते हुए, बिना झाड़ी में फंसे जंगली जानवर की तरह शिकार बनते हुए, भीड़ के हाथों कत्ल होते हुए बगैर. किसी और दुनिया में मैं चाहता हूं कि मेरे बच्चे मैदान में टिड्डियां पकड़ें, लिविंग रूम में गुड़ियों के साथ खेलें, हवा के झोंकों के साथ लहराते फूलों की खुशबू की सांस भरें, पक्षियों को अपने पंखों से आकाश को नापते हुए देखें. मेरे बच्चे किसी और दुनिया में. धन्यवाद. So I bring to you all this strength that the spoken word poetry has. I am grateful to our World Poetry Movement Asia coordinator, Rati ma'am, who has coordinated these 9 sessions all over India, our World Poetry Movement global team, and everybody who has been coordinating these sessions across the world. I'm also thankful to Brijesh Singh from our Kritya-Poetry team and WPM team, who always manages back-end technical part. All of you who are part of the Delhi chapter, who have been are not reading today, but they have been listening, sharing, contributing in whatever way we can. I request everybody to join all the sessions of this particular movement, Free Africa, with our other chapters. And with that, I will hand over to Rati ma'am to conclude the session. Ma'am, you're on mute, ma'am.
Rajesh mistake. So, I thank you, Pooja. You have done wonderful. This Delhi chapter was fantastic. All are very fantastic poet, very good poetry. कुमार जी, आपको मैं फिर से बुलाएंगे. आपके गीत तो बहुत अच्छे लगे सुनने के लिए, और अगर आपके गीत नहीं होते और आनंद भी उनमें नहीं मिलते तो फिर दिल्ली थोड़ी सूनी सूनी लगती. बिना हिंदी के दिल्ली कैसे, है ना? तो खाली इंग्लिश से तो नहीं काम चलेगा ना, तो मिक्स चलता है. तो आप लोगों को सबको धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. और ये बहुत अच्छा एक एक ये काम हम ऐसा कर रहे हैं जिसमें हमारा मन है, जिसे हम मन से कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि हम मानवता के साथ खड़े हैं. ये केवल एक पोइट्री शो नहीं है, जैसे कि पूजा ने बताया था कि ये पोइट्री उत्सव नहीं है, फेस्टिवल नहीं है. ये हम बड़े सुख से नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम नहीं चाहते कि ऐसा किसी और जगह भी हो, लेकिन जो हम कर रहे हैं उनकी आवाज़ उठाकर कर रहे हैं, उनके साथ अपनी आवाज़ उठाने के लिए कर रहे हैं. तो आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आप लोग बहुत बढ़िया कविताएं लाए और अपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से अपने इसमें, अपने इस होम में अपनी आहुति डाली. तो इस काव्यात्मक आहुति के लिए आप सबको शुक्रिया, धन्यवाद.